Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double A Team Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Nagishi. It is a very early edition, in addition to the one that I'm doing with my regular co-host, Ken Fang, later tonight. Joining me is a gentleman who has been with our show previously. It is the Anaheim Angels beat reporter, Jeff Fletcher from the Orange County Register. Jeff, good morning. Are you in LA or in Arizona as of right
I'm in LA right now. I've just got a few days between the end of spring training and the start of the season when I'll be in Baltimore.
now? Well, thank you so much. I understand that this was the only time slot available for you, just as the spring training has wrapped up and Freeway Series is taking place. So let's get right to it. Obviously, one of the reasons I reached out to you certainly is about Shohei Ohtani, but it's for different reasons. And, I understand that what's going on with Ohtani and then translator Ipe Mizuhara is something that you can't really delve into because you're no longer covering, at least you're still covering the Angels, but they're no longer with the ball club. But we're trying to do a different angle on Ohtani and his tenure with the Angels in a little bit. By the way, if you're joining me on this show right now, I apologize. Me and Ken Fang from Awful Announcing, the one that we later do tonight, we're going to delve further into the Ohtani and Ipe Mizuhara's gambling situation further a little bit tonight. So let's start with the upcoming season, the 2024 Anaheim Angels. Certainly, the departure of Ohtani leaves a huge hole in the lineup as well as for the marketing purposes, Jeff. I pose this question, as you can see here. Is there really something to be excited about this team this upcoming season, in your opinion?
Well, they definitely have their work cut out for them. They're certainly not a favorite by anybody to go to the playoffs, and there's a lot of fans that don't have high expectations of them, even Angels fans. But they do have a pretty decent core of young players. Zach Neto, Logan O'Hoppe, Nolan Shonwell, pitchers like Reed Detmers and Chase Silseth. They look like they could be pretty good. So, if those kind of things happen, if those players, take big steps forward, which is certainly possible, then the Angels all of a sudden could look like a pretty exciting young team. If those guys are still not ready or they take steps backwards, or, if Mike Trout continues to be hurt, then it's going to be a long season for them.
Mm-hmm. One of the guys that who seems to have been getting a lot of looks, the guy who many had high hopes for when he was drafted, is Joe Adell. I know Ron Washington, we'll get to in a little bit, but is this a last shot for Joe Adell to be with this team and make some sort of an impact? Or do you think that that time has already passed with him?
Well, he's out of options now, which means the Angels can no longer send him to the minor leagues. So if he doesn't play well enough to, be worth a spot in the majors, then he's going to be somewhere else probably. So I think this is sort of a last chance with the Angels in that respect. That being said, he did show some encouraging signs in spring training of cleaning up some of the issues that he had in his game. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see. He's going to get plenty of at-bats, I think. There's plenty of room for him to play and show what he can do. So we'll see what happens when the season starts.
I know the Angels minor league system has not been considered one of the best. More likely you look at the one of the worst for quite some time. And the drafting of Zach Neto and Nolan Chanel and then having to promote them in such a short amount of time seems a little, desperate. It sounds like more of a desperation for the Angels. But it seems as though both players have adjusted pretty well, despite, being drafted and then having to throw into the big leagues without having any minor league experience. Out of the two, who do you have, in your opinion, have the long-term success, Chanel or Zach Neto?
Well, Neto has shown a little more because he played pretty much all of last season in the major leagues. So we have a little more of an idea of how good he's going to be. He's defensively, he's a major league shortstop. No question. He's very good. Offensively, he had some high points and some low points. I think it remains to be seen how good he's going to be offensively. As for Nolan Schanuel, he just barely played. He played 6 weeks in the major leagues. In those 6 weeks, he showed a great plate discipline, which I think is the reason that people are hopeful about him, because that's usually a thing that young players develop later. And, as long as you swing at the right pitches, then that's a big part of being successful. So he's definitely going to do that. I think it's still too early to tell. He's a first baseman, and if he doesn't develop some power, at least, extra base power, it's hard to stay at first base in the major leagues. So we're still waiting to see if that happens. He's got some defensive things to clean up too. So if you give me a choice of the two of them, I would just take Neto, just because he's shown a little more in the major leagues to this point.
One of the key veterans on this Angels team that has been making some headlines off the field has been Anthony Rendon. He signed a big contract after, leaving Washington. Fortunately, he is kind of the epitome of the money that has not been well spent by the owner, Artie Moreno. And then he has made comments about how he feels about playing, a long season and all that stuff. That's unfortunately probably added a little more frustration by the fans who wants to see him succeed. But at the same time, I think it's a little bit more of a Rendon having a little more perspective in life. Is he misunderstood, or, having covered him since he joined the Angels, is this basically who he is?
Well, first of all, I think that his feelings are probably not different from a lot of people. I think that if you ask anybody, like, what's more important, baseball or your family, they would say their family. And, we would wonder about it if it was otherwise. I think a lot of players also feel like there are too many games. The problem is that Anthony Rendon is not really in a position to be saying these things, because he's been hurt so much, and there's so much frustration with him to begin with, that then when you come out and say something like this, even if it's a perfectly defensible thing and something that a lot of other people agree with, he's not the one that probably should be saying it, or he should find a more tactful way to say it. Like, of course, my family is number one, but when I'm here at the ballpark, this is the most important thing to me, and I'm going to do all I can to perform for the team, and then go to my family when the day is over. That kind of thing, I'm sure, would have come over a lot better, and basically said the same thing. So, I think he's misunderstood to a point, and just doesn't really understand the things he says affect the perception of him.
My guest this afternoon is Jeff Fletcher, who covers the Anaheim Angels for the Orange County Register, Stephen Negishi, talking about the upcoming Angels with the Jeff Fletcher. So we know about the departure of Shohei Ohtani, and I think this was, in your opinion, Jeff, this was not a real surprise, even from your perspective, right?
I mean, I think everybody else in baseball felt there was a 0% chance that Ohtani was coming back to the Angels. I never felt it was zero. I had been telling people I thought maybe 30%. So, that's enough to not be surprised either way. And when he did leave, that's kind of what nobody was surprised that happened.
I'm sure that the departure wasn't even surprising, but it's even not a surprise that he left to sign with the Dodgers, right?
I mean, all along, that was the number one team that people said. When people asked me, and I gave that 30% Angels, I said 40% Dodgers and 30%, everybody else. So I felt like he really would stay in Southern California and either, stay with the Angels or go to the Dodgers. I thought that was the overwhelming, those two possibilities.
I'm sharing an article here from Sam Bloom, who I'm sure you're familiar, who covered the Angels for The Athletic, and his article not too long ago, about the Angels having to adjust life after Ohtani. Obviously, the players had to deal with the hordes of media members, especially from Japan, and having to be seen all the time and being inundated with the questions about Ohtani all the time. So I want to know from your perspective, Jeff, that I pose this question. Do you think that the players are secretly happy that they no longer have to deal with the large Japanese media, whether it's just the players, coaches, or even in this article, PR person in charge seemed to be a little more relaxed in Sam's article. Do you feel that kind of vibe coming from the Angels this spring?
Well, let me preface that answer with this. There's nobody in the entire Angels organization who wishes that they didn't have Shohei Ohtani, because obviously the goal of every one of them is to win the World Series. And that's easier to do if you have Shohei Ohtani than if you don't, because he was a great baseball player. Right. So let's just get that out of the way. And I'm not trying to say that anybody's like, we're glad he's gone, et cetera, et cetera. But that being said, once he is gone, there are some silver linings to that a lot of people do appreciate. That there's just more room, like in the clubhouse. The other day, the players were kind of playing this little football game and throwing around a ball in the clubhouse, and that's just not the kind of thing they could do when there were 25 reporters standing in the middle of the room. And it's just, basically the clubhouse is their living room, and their living room is has a lot more space now. So they feel like they can probably be a little more themselves. They don't have to deal with, if something happens to Ohtani and, Ohtani's not talking about it, then you have to go talk to 10 other players about, what do you think about this with Ohtani? That's something they don't have to do anymore. And there was also sort of an undercurrent throughout everything they did. Whenever the Angels would lose, when Shohei Ohtani would hit 2 homers and then some relief pitcher would blow the game, there was sort of this thing, you're ruining Ohtani's career by losing these games while he's here. You know, and I'm sure that they're happy to not have to answer to that anymore, that now they're just for themselves, and they win or lose, they're judged the same way another team would be judged, the same way the Arizona Diamondbacks or the St. Louis Cardinals are judged when they win or lose, rather than being like, you're responsible for the legacy of this great player. So I think they don't mind not having to do that anymore.
So the atmosphere is somewhat relieved now that they have more space to roam around. And then also, again, like you said, in the silver linings, that's number one, but also an opportunity for the Angels to perhaps move on and start tinkering with that, different players in a different lineups per se, right?
Yeah, it's just a little more laid back atmosphere, and it's different than when the whole world is on every failure because of the impact that failure has on Shohei Ohtani. So I think now they have a little more freedom to just be themselves and and just play baseball.
Mm-hmm. So obviously the news over the last week or so has been on Ohtani and his translator Ippei Mizuhara. And by the way, if you're joining me on this live stream, we won't delve too much into the Ippei Mizuhara's firing due to illegal gambling. That again, if you're just joining me, that will be something that me and my regular co-host Ken Fang will be delving much further into tonight on our regularly scheduled live stream a little bit later tonight. But Jeff, how shocked were you when you heard that news about Mizuhara's involvement in the illegal gambling?
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy to hear that story come out. This is not something that anybody expected. I knew that Ippei liked to play poker. I actually played poker with him one time, and really? But that was pretty much the extent of it. I had no idea that he was into sports gambling, or certainly this deep into sports gambling. And so, beyond that, it was quite a shock.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you say you played poker with him only one time, was it like at a legal gambling?
No, yeah. There's where the team stays in Cleveland. There's a casino right next door to it.
Oh yeah.
And
I lived in Ohio and been to Cleveland. Yes, there's one really literally by downtown, and also where the Cleveland Cavaliers play. Mortgage. The name of the arena escapes me, but it's the Rocket Mortgage Arena or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just went to the casino to play, and I got seated at a table, and there was Ipe. So that was one time, probably in 2019.
All right. Okay. Interesting. Did he when you played with him, was he like tense, or was he like having kind of looked a little, sweating a lot because he had already lost a couple of thousands or something like that?
No, that's not the kind of game I was playing in. Trust me.
I see.
It was a pretty relaxed, fun game. So
I see.
nothing serious. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, as far as his skills, I believe John Heyman, who I'm sure you're very familiar with, I think he went to a Bleacher Report Q&A session, and he kind of ripped, Mizuhara as a translator. He said that he didn't think he was that good of a translator and all that kind of stuff. Do you find that comments from John Heyman credible, or do you think like it was unnecessary shot being taken by John Heyman of all people?
Well, I mean, I don't speak Japanese, so I don't know how accurate his translations were. Sometimes we wished he would have spoken up a little louder so we could hear him, especially when there's 40 people all crowded around in a hallway trying to hear what he's saying. But beyond that, there were not really instances where, when I would talk to the Japanese reporters afterwards, and they would say, "Oh, Ipe said this totally wrong." I mean, there were never really instances like that. So I think it's a very hard job to be an interpreter. I mean, I think if I had a conversation with somebody in English and I was asked to repeat everything they said in English, I probably couldn't do it. So let alone translating that, I think it's a difficult thing to do.
We know California is one of the few states that's still somewhat, illegal when it comes to gambling in sports, which is kind of shocking given the amount of professional sports teams and also college sports. So as a longtime resident there, Jeff, I'm not saying that this could spur the change in legalized gambling, but do you feel like that maybe state of California might change their stance about legalizing sports gambling, not because of what happened to Ohtani, we're trying to protect Ohtani, but maybe to generate more revenues down the road? And also another question, given that how prevalent gambling has become in this country, where you see, sports center highlights, and then also, the presented sponsors by all leagues now, do you find that to be incredibly disturbing?
Well, on your first question, I think that sports gambling was coming to California inevitably at some point. If you look at the states that have sports gambling, that number just keeps going up. It doesn't go down. So there's, I think, 40 now. And, anything that 40 states are doing is probably something the other 10 are going to do too. That's just the way it works. And as for the kind of problematic combination of gambling and sports, I think that it's certainly something to be thought about, and I'm sure the leagues all sort of wrestle with it themselves as they accept more, sponsorships and stuff, and kind of embrace gambling more. I don't think they can turn around at this point because they're kind of too far into it. They just have to do the best they can to make sure that the line is drawn to where, the people involved do not get in, the players and coaches and officials and that kind of thing do not get involved in the gambling on their sport.
Let's return to the questions regarding the Angels. The Angels hired Ron Washington, a longtime veteran manager with the Texas Rangers, also served as a bench coach with the Atlanta Braves, having won a World Series back in 2021 and all. Were you kind of surprised by the hiring of Ron Washington, and what has he done so far this spring that makes you kind of feel optimistic that he was the right hiring so far?
I mean, I was not terribly surprised because Perry Benasian, the general manager, worked with him back in Texas and also in Atlanta. So, anytime you have a person has that much of a connection to the GM, they've got a pretty good foot in the door. And so far, I think that he's been really good. There's the spring training, things have definitely been different. The team was running the bases much more aggressively. Their pitchers were really throwing strikes more aggressively. They were playing players a little more often, not giving them the days off, which is kind of the old school Ron Washington philosophy. And he's just a super energetic, enthusiastic, optimistic guy. And if you have a team that's sort of got low expectations and you're trying to lift them higher, and especially a team with a lot of young players, that's the kind of manager you want.
Mm-hmm. One of the things about the Angels, moving forward, it is the future of its other superstar, that is Mike Trout. And, Mike Trout has been, somewhat injury prone. He missed quite a lot of time last year as well. And there have been some rumors about him being moved last off season, particularly to Philadelphia. Obviously, he's from the Jersey area, and it's not that far of a distance. So, do you feel like the Trout will remain with the Angels past this year, or do you feel like he is too loyal to the organization? Obviously, now with Ohtani no longer with the team, and he's going to try and ride it out no matter what happens.
Well, I think he's shown loyalty to the organization. First of all, just because they're the team that drafted him and gave him two huge contracts, and he feels some obligation to them. And also, he feels like the last 3 years, especially, part of the problem why the Angels haven't been able to win is him, that he's been hurt. And I think he understands that responsibility. And if he were to, demand a trade, then that sort of makes it look as if he's saying, well, the Angels have failed me. I'm doing my part and the team isn't doing their part. And I think he understands that, he also has to do more. I think that if we get to the end of this season and say Mike Trout has returned to his MVP form and he's healthy and he's looks great again, and the Angels still don't look like they're going anywhere, I think then you might have a chance to see it change. But otherwise, if either the Angels get better around him or he continues to be at his current level, I don't think anything's going to change, because I think, first of all, he's difficult to trade just because he's 32 years old now. He's going to be 33 next offseason. He makes a lot of money. Right now, he's got 7 years left at $36 million a year. So that's not an easy person to trade anyway. So I think that he's going to be here for the long term.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm plugging the book you have written. I believe this was 2 years ago.
It came out in 2022, yes. And there's an updated version that came out last year. So the paperback version has an updated chapter that goes through the WBC.
Oh, okay, that's great. So Jeff is the author who has written on the Showtime about the story of Shohei Ohtani. So if you're interested in reading about Ohtani's upbringing to where he is right now, and then also the updated version, make sure to go to Amazon or go to Barnes and Noble if there is one still nearby in your neck of the woods, and get a copy. And obviously Jeff has really worked a long time on writing this book, and it is simply a great book. I've also purchased and read it myself, and hopefully those who are watching this live stream right now, you're not going to learn anything about the gambling scandal, folks, but if you want to learn more about Ohtani as a baseball player and as a person, make sure you go pick up this book written by Jeff Fletcher of the Orange County Register, who is our guest tonight. About the Angels ownership, there have been a lot of rumblings, and the fans aren't happy with the current owner, Artie Moreno, who put his team on sale and then he rescinded it, and now he is still the owner. What is the future of Angels ownership and its a level of commitment under Artie Moreno?
Well, Artie said just a month ago that he's there for the long term. He's not planning to sell anytime soon. Mm-hmm. He is, I think, about 78 years old, so there's that, thing to think about. But he doesn't have any plans of selling the team. He loves owning the team. He loves baseball. I think a lot of fans are frustrated just because he hasn't done exactly what they want him to do. They want him to spend a lot of money on one thing and not spend as much money on something else. And
Sure.
it's I think he is certainly to blame for some of what's gone wrong with the Angels over the last 10 years, but not everything, which, a lot of people blame him for everything. So, and a lot of fans are just frustrated. They just want something new. The grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. So people were kind of excited when there was the prospect of him selling the team. And then when he decided not to, there was a lot of disappointment. And then certainly nothing that's happened in the year since then has eased the disappointment. So people are still very frustrated with him. But, the only way that things are probably going to turn is if these young guys perform better, and that gives them a better base of talent. And then he might be willing to add a little more premium talent on top of that to push them over the top, rather than to spend a bunch of money to get them from 73 wins to 78 wins. If the young guys can get them to 85 and he can spend some money to get them to 90, then that's probably something he'd be more interested in doing.
Mm-hmm. Certainly the Angels have their works cut out, and if Artie is kind of on the gun shy after spending so much money on guys like Pujols and also Rendon, and even countless others that I can't probably remember on top of my head. But those are two obviously big ones that have not really panned out, especially Rendon. And last year the Angels finished 73 wins. Do you feel like that's kind of a hard number to reach this year?
Well, I mean, when you win 73 games and you lose Shohei Ohtani and you don't really replace him, it's hard to justify that you're going to actually be better. Their hope is that they have a bunch of guys that can get all a little bit better, because they were either hurt last year or they were very young last year. And if you kind of add all those guys up, that maybe that makes them better. But, we have to wait and see if that actually happens. Nobody is counting on that right now. I mean, I think the over-under in Vegas is like 71.5. So, there's certainly low expectations for them, but they have high expectations for themselves. So we will see what happens over the next 6 months.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jeff, let's do a quick lightning round looking at the baseball since that's already starting this Thursday. All right, let's look at the AL East. Who are you picking as a winner? Baltimore?
I picked the Yankees before Garrett Cole got hurt. So now I guess I'll probably go with Baltimore.
Mm-hmm. Do you see anybody coming out of the wild card, like say Tampa or?
I mean, every team in that division, maybe except the Red Sox, is a playoff caliber team. So, and the Red Sox weren't even not that bad. So if they get some breaks too, I mean, who knows? So, but that's going to be a tough division, and I wouldn't be surprised if basically any of the other four are in the playoffs.
Okay. AL Central, who do you have in that division?
Well, that division is the opposite of the AL East. I don't think any of those teams should be in the playoffs, but
but
the Twins, I guess, won it last year, and they still seem probably like the best team on paper.
Right. What do you think of the Tigers? Do you think they've done enough to compete, or they're still a year away in your opinion?
I mean, they were showing some promise last year, and Tarek Skubal is a good young pitcher. So,
right.
They certainly have a chance to make another step forward. And, like that division is not that great. So, a little step forward could go a long way in that division.
That's true. That's true. Mm-hmm. And the AL West, is it the Rangers?
I got the Astros winning it just because the Rangers rotation is going to be kind of a mess at the beginning of the year. They're going to hope to get DeGrom and Scherzer back sometime during the year.
Right.
But
Jordan Montgomery is probably leaving somewhere.
Yeah. So we don't know when those guys are coming back and how good they're going to be when they come back. So I'm sure they have enough to make the playoffs, but I just don't think they have enough to win the division with that kind of pitching question.
All right, National League, NL East. This is a very competitive one. Is it the Braves or the Phillies for you?
The Braves probably. I mean, the Braves are still really good. So they haven't done anything to take away from that since last year.
Right. NL Central. I'm a biased Cubs fan, So I hope that the Cubs will win the division, but I know it's not an easy division now. With the Reds looking much better, and so forth. But do you have the Cubs, or do you have somebody else in that division?
The Cubs seem to be the on paper team, but again, that's a division that's not great. The Reds looked promising, but then they had a bunch of guys get hurt in spring training. The Pirates actually look like they might be kind of a sneaky surprise team. So if you want to go for something kind of a little bit off the map, I would say maybe the Pirates, but the Cubs are probably the safer pick.
And the NL West, of course, is the Dodgers, right?
Oh yeah, Dodgers are going to win the division. It doesn't mean they're going to win the World Series, but they definitely over 162 should win the division.
And who's your pick for the World Series? AL?
I think I picked the Orioles.
Okay.
And
the NL?
Oh, Braves.
Oh,
I think I have the Braves.
And you're picking the Braves to win the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay. I see. Were you surprised that Jackson Holliday was sent down to the minors, or do you think it was the right call?
I mean, I have no idea. I didn't see the guy play in spring training, but I'm sure he'll be up pretty quickly.
Florida,
I did pick him to win Rookie of the Year, though, so I'm sure he'll be up pretty soon. I am disappointed because the Angels play in Baltimore on opening day, and it would have been nice to see his major league debut. But sure he'll be up soon.
Well, on that note, Jeff, it was a pleasure doing a live stream with you, and thank you everybody for watching this live stream. If you just joined in late, we didn't really touch on the Ohtani and the Ippei Mizuhara situation. Again, that's something that me and my regular co-host Ken Fang from Awful Announcing will be delving further in tonight on our regularly scheduled live stream. That is scheduled at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. Jeff, thank you very much, and good luck to you this upcoming year. I know you have a long schedule ahead of you, so I really appreciate your valuable time to talk about the Angels and the Ohtani as time in the Angels and everything. Talk to you again soon. Take care.
All right. Thanks for having me.